Hey, everybody. Welcome back to SaaS Founder Stories. My name's David Brennan, and today I have the pleasure of having Raja Singh. He's the CEO and co-founder of Revolear with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. And thank you for what you do. It's great to have more resources for founders and having these content, these stories, a little bit of an oral history for the modern age of the podcast.
Yeah, I love it. It's pretty fun. So tell me a little bit about Revolear and what you guys do.
So we are in the trendy area of AI sales agents. But I'm probably not the first person that's told you that. So let me elaborate a little bit about what we're doing that's different and et cetera, et cetera. For a long time, people have applied technology. Over the last 20 or 30 years, there's been kind of a radical difference in how businesses order and buy products. But a lot of that technological innovation has happened around the relatively easy to purchase products. You can certainly buy paper clips, you can buy computers, you can buy even SaaS software by throwing down a credit card. But it was our point of view that a lot of the more complex business deals, things that got negotiated, things that required some customization, things that were configured for your needs, especially the services that you may buy, those things remained mostly in Excel documents and PowerPoint type exercise. So Revolear is taking aim at that. And we believe that there's a whole series of traditionally salesperson led deals that can now be done at great customer convenience by AI. So you can think of Revolear as a kind of a digital sales room staffed by a highly intelligent AI agent with the oversight of a human sales manager that's available whenever they need help.
Love it. So give me the origin story. I want to know how you figured it out and started this one.
Well, we were incorporated the company in November of 22. And so you may say, well, what's so big deal about that? Well, actually, 5 days after we were founded, ChatGPT was introduced. And it's pretty interesting. Like, the company you end up with and the company you start are not always the same thing. And so the journey was we had been, well, actually, let me just back up very briefly. 1998, I went to work at Siebel Systems. In 14, my former boss, a guy by the name of David Schmeier, who I worked for at Siebel Systems, said, "Hey, I'm starting a new company called Vlocity. Do you want to join?" So I joined there. I was the head of products. Fast forward through that experience, 2020, Salesforce bought us 1.5 billion. It was kind of cool. And then 2 years after that, I got together with the same investors and many of the original engineers from Velocity. We started this company. So that's a little bit of the origin story in terms of the people. In terms of the problem we were trying to solve, it ties back to a little bit where I started my comments. We were kind of very surprised to see that despite all the investment in sales tools and automated quoting and automated contracting, that many complex deals remained the domain of highly manual approvals, highly manual document creation, very bespoke negotiation. Hey, I'll send you the red lines. My lawyer likes Microsoft Word. Let's use that. So we thought it was actually a very fertile opportunity to rethink basically that whole big deal flow, but do it from the perspective of, a digital experience for the customer. Now, the fact that we ended up with a digital experience staffed by AI, that's what makes the ChatGPT introduction so relevant. Is literally we didn't even see that coming, and we were able to take advantage of it and say, if we're going to do some stuff digitally, why not just have the salesperson be digital too? So kind of, it's still unfolding, obviously, but that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
Talk about perfect timing, eh?
Talk about perfect luck. I don't know. Luck counts. That's
I'd
lesson
rather
number
be
one.
lucky than good any day of the week. That's
Exactly.
my theory. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, we were talking a little bit before this about what you wanted to teach us. So set this up. Tell me what you guys were struggling with, and then we can go into how you solved it.
Yeah. So, there's a concept called founder-led sales, and I'm sure many on your show have talked about this in the past. It's kind of the expectation in the investor community, the VC community, that the first 10 deals or so in a company gets sourced by the founder within the enterprise space. And so, for me going in, like I've been selling my whole life. Like I'm just, pitching's great. I love pitching. No problem. I can do the sales. But I think when you do a startup, basically every weakness you have or you don't even know you have as a founder is going to be laid bare pretty instantly. So even the things you think you're good at, you certainly learn that there's a few wrinkles that maybe you're not good at. And what Revolear really taught me is that my success in sales in the past had always been with a brand name company, and often with salespeople who arranged a lot of the early phases of the sales cycle. So I was brought in to sell, but frankly, they already had the meeting. The person already wanted to hear the message. And by far, the single biggest adjustment for me has been not necessarily being the salesperson, but as being the sales development rep. Basically, putting every single one of those leads in my pipeline and going from, hey, I've never heard of Revolear, to great, I'll take the meeting and listen to what you have to say. And I think what I would advise to founders is that the amount of pipeline you need, the number of meetings you need to get one sale is huge. 50, 100 to 1, as opposed to, you're selling at Salesforce or name your other big company, you need like 3 to 1. And gearing up for that and kind of realizing how much of my time needed to be spent on prospecting and how much of that was a critical success factor for the company, was a huge lesson learned. So let me pause there to see if I'm answering your question, but that's I guess the biggest takeaway.
I think it's just really interesting because it just sparked in my head how many people I've talked to that have started companies and they're just like, man, you can't hit your sales numbers, you can't, and I never put the two pieces together about like having the brand name, how much pre-selling actually happens when you have that brand recognition. Because when you don't, you got to get the door open, first of all, and then you probably got to educate them. Because if you're not known, then the problem's probably a little bit new and they don't fully understand, and then you're educating on the solution. So that's really cool. So tell me, how did you go about making sure that you had pipeline and solving that once you figured it out?
So a couple of cautionary notes to founders. Here's one big takeaway that I've learned. 100% of my initial customers turned out to be people that have directly worked with me in the software world. So in other words, not people that I knew personally that thought highly of me, not people that I worked with in a different capacity. Like I started my career as a banker. Those people were helpful and nice, but they didn't actually buy anything. And so people are really relying on that initial perception of you and your initial trust in that role. So my very first customer was somebody that was my very first customer, my last product at Vlocity. So he's like, hey, that last product worked out pretty well. I'm like, this product's even better. You're going to love this product. And there were several other people who were my counterparts, my peers, either Velocity, Salesforce, or Velocity, or people that I went to business school with. So people that knew me basically directly in this context. The flip side is I've had some conversation, friends of friends have introduced me, people that maybe think highly of me but don't really know what I do. It's tougher for those people to really bank on you when you're asking for that, customer 0, customer 1, customer 2 type of experience. It really requires in that context. So I suspect when we score this, and if I look at the first 10 customers, I bet you 80% will be either former customers or former colleagues, and then it'll start to diversify kind of beyond that as we grow, and we're about at that point now. It'll kind of grow beyond that. And so it's kind of an interesting takeaway. The other thing I'll share with people is you'll get a lot of comments for founders about your pitch, your initial customer profile and ideal customer profile. And two things on that. One, when you're at a big company, if you're used to being in that environment, you'll show up to a meeting and you'll say, hey, I'm from Salesforce. They'll be like, great, let me tell you my problem. Here's what I need to solve. And they'll elaborate for 45 minutes. You don't even need to talk, and they tell you everything you need to know. When you're at a startup, you roll in and they're like, okay, I got 3 minutes. And you gotta pitch your stuff with laser focused precision. And even if you have a slightly different pitch that you think would have worked better, well, tough luck, bro. You got like one shot, you just used it. And so, I won't be the first one to tell you, but dialing that in, and having that basically laser shot that you can take and being selective about who you give it to know that basically they're a viable prospect is huge. The other thing I'll share is, the term ICP typically means ideal customer profile. And people think of it in terms of how many employees, what industry, what use case are they trying to solve. People would call those firmographic indicators. I would suggest to you that there's another dimension, which I call the ideal customer personality. Some people just like buying from startups. They think it's cool. They think it's like a badge of courage. They literally want to be in your video as the cool guy. Like when you're successful, they want to be the guy that says, I like seeing a rock band that nobody's heard of. You want to be the one that says you saw them first. There's other people that no matter what you do ever, they will simply not buy from a startup. Like they just won't do it. And so you can save yourself a lot of time by trying to assess that. You can look online, have they stumped for other startups, who's in the reference list. You can even ask them, hey, what are some cool other innovative products that you've adopted? And if they're like, hey, I adopted PowerPoint, you may have a little bit of a push up that hill. So
I love that.
it's very strategic selling. And again, you need 10 times the volume that you think you may need.
How do you go about finding your ideal customer profile?
A lot of trial and error. And I'll share with you something on this. There's an adage in the enterprise space, which I knew but didn't necessarily heed to the right extent. People don't replace systems they don't like. Most people, enterprise software systems, people don't like, right? You have to have a severe pain to basically go through the hassle of attempting to procure and implement something new. So we fell a little bit into the trap of doing something that was a lot better, but not necessarily transformational enough to warrant a replacement. And we attempted to do this at a time coming off of the 2020 through 2022 SaaS buying binge, where people just, the pattern was full, so to speak, with other solutions. They were still implementing all that stuff. So we effectively pivoted, and we pivoted around making tools for salespeople to making tools that didn't require sales. And they're actually the same tools. Like fundamentally, it's the same stuff. But it used to be that like, here's the UI, here's what the salesperson does. Now we're like, here's what the customer does, and here's how the bot does it for you. And that's proven, one, to be more transformational and more trendy. It's AI. But two, it also means that to try this out, you don't have to go back to your sales force and tell them, hey, we're doing a new tool again, got some new stuff, you have to learn this. We found that nobody wanted to do that. Nobody wanted to do that. So that was a huge lesson. And once we kind of dialed that in, we moved over to basically selling. We didn't start with sales anymore. We started with marketing because marketing was more into that type of story. And we focused on bigger companies because they typically had some budget, some aptitude, and some interest in trialing stuff, even if they didn't necessarily want to use it. So, it took us from targeting at, mid-commercial companies with 10 to 100 million in revenue, to targeting CMOs at $100 million plus companies who all have basically objectives like go try some AI stuff. And so we're like, great, here's some AI stuff, you can try it. So it changed the game very significantly.
It's really smart. We've been exploring this idea about AI-centric design. So instead of like being a product person, human-centric design, the new way of designing software is around the AI itself. And I think that's really interesting because what you're touching on there with having the bot as that sales agent or the taking over the role of the person, you're designing for that actual bot now. Is that part of the process that you guys have been doing? How's that played into your product design?
It is, and going into the idea of luck, we had some fields and some data that we were adding to our model, kind of our core definitional. We call it the model, but it involves like what are your products, what are your prices, what are your contracts. That's kind of the model that holds the whole thing together. So we had some fields in there that were like, we called it a guidance field. And the idea was it would be a place where you could tell the human salesperson some extra training tips about the product. We basically figured out that like the bot always reads it and always does something with it far more than the human would. And
In prompt
so
engineering.
we basically learned how to basically not just have a separate thing for prompt engineering, but how to embed the notion of prompts up and down the model. And then as a second step, this spring we largely did this work. All the things that used to be UI accessible, we made into functions that the assistant could exercise. Again, same stuff, but it's basically, as you were saying, just a different kind of, what's there's UI, there's API, maybe there's a third term. You can coin it here, David, about the bot interface. I don't know, but
I will figure it out.
you learn how to basically build those things in so that the bot can access and do its functions.
That's super cool. Well, let's wrap it up. And what is one thing that our network can help you with?
Well, we have a group of successful customers. The platform is kind of hardened through real use, but we still got a long way to learn about how AI is going to successfully sell business solutions. Our ideal customer profile is a company that does a reasonable volume of transactions, let's say 100 to 200 a year, probably has between 30 plus salespeople and maybe 30 plus services people to help your customer. So if you're kind of in that category and you want to explore, and we're happy to do pilots and little small projects, if you'd like to explore how you can use basically an AI salesperson, as we say, to multiply your sales force to provide you some extra lift, we just love to work with you. And even if you've just got opinions and or you've tried things and you want to share it, we love that too. But really looking for partners that we can kind of get together with and learn things and push the envelope.
Well, we'll put that out to the network. And thank you very much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I can't wait to see what you guys build.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun times. Take care, David.
You too. Bye.